you have a whole history of immigration from Asia to Mexico that are starting to show in the visual culture of Mexico. When you see images of El Parian, and El Parian was this gigantic market in Mexico City, that when the Bourbons, for example, are tightening the reins, the Bourbons are this family from France that was ruling the viceroyalty of Mexico, or New Spain, I'm sorry. When the Bourbons come into power, they tighten the reins and they want to destroy the Parian, because that's era el mercado de la raza, no era el mercado de la gente. That's one of the reasons why you had a statue of Charles IV, I think, in the Plaza Mayor instead of El Parian. But you see a lot of visual culture from the 18th century where you see the presence of Japanese peoples, of Asian peoples as in the markets. You also have this relationship between the both empires. There's an incredible scholar, Sofia Sanabrais, that talks about this exchange a lot. There's, for instance, we have this type of objects, but we have also these folding screens, which in Japan are called byobus. In Mexico, they became biombos. And they were used to separate different rooms in, again, wealthy homes. And they come from Japan, and they look at things in Japan, and the iconography is similar, but in Mexico, they become its own thing. And because they were Creole objects, you always see images of the conquest, quote unquote conquest, I hate that word, of the invasion of Tenochtitlan, because that was a mythical moment where indigenous and European comes together. So this global object, again, was at the service of a binary identity. So there's one famous one where you see Mexico City that looks like pagodas, and it was sort of dressed. Mexico City was dressed to look like Japan, to welcome, people from Japan, like this envoy of rulers from Japan. So the history, for example, the history of Asians in Mexico, which is very painful in the 20th century. And there's a scholar in UIC also, Freddy Gonzalez, that talks more about this. The history of Asians in Mexico is very complicated and it's very intricate, but it's also part of who we are. I mean, La China Poblana, hello, right? And then we have that in the casta system, this system that was created based on, they call limpieza de sangre, or cleansing of blood trials, where people had to prove that they were pure Catholics, pure-blooded Catholics. And then there was a mix between, let's say, a pure-blooded Catholic with an indigenous, and that's how you get a mestizo, right? And then a mestizo mixes with Spanish, you get a castizo. And it's your lucky day, if you mix again with Spanish, you become Spanish again. It was a ridiculous system. But then Chino becomes one of the categories of the castas. So, and that's why I like to highlight this type of objects in my classes: the biombos, the vasijas, the talavera. There's also there's this big lacquer-like platones that are created in Michoacan. Those also are based on lacquer from China. I like to highlight that because that dismantles the myth of mestizaje. It shows that we are in Mexico, we are indigenous, we're European, we're Asian, we're African, we're everything. And that's I don't want to say the great thing about colonization, but that's a reality of colonization. That's one of the reasons why I don't like to erase it.